I'm Carter. I was Una's advocate for Casa.
Casa is a nonprofit organization that stands for Court-Appointed Special Advocates, and we provide volunteers who advocate for kids who have experienced abuse or neglect, and many of them are in the foster care system.
Yes, so we got assigned to the case. He was substance exposed in the hospital. Originally, he was diverted to Tashana.
His birthday was 12/12/21, and 3 days later, that's when it all started.
And he was with her for 24 hours. However, CPS deemed her as an unfit placement, and they came and picked him up, and that's when he entered into foster care.
It started off really rocky. His mom was addicted, which is why they came into the picture, and she was very volatile, with social service, but I think she was just maybe a little broken.
And so then it goes to a 30-day hearing, which is adjudication.
Well, I was able to first meet Tashana in addition with other family members in court following a court hearing. My first encounter with them was rough. They was very adamant that they did not want to talk to me.
I didn't know if I could trust her either. She introduced herself. The first thing she said,
I do not work for you. I do not work for the attorneys. I don't work for DSS. I solely work for Una.
And I was like, oh, okay, well, if she can be that honest with me, then I just feel like she is somebody I can believe.
Tashana, she was the only one that really took my card.
I'm glad I did. She got to see firsthand how everything was going. She didn't just agree, with what they were saying.
Our volunteers work very closely with the guardian ad litem, which is the attorney for the child. We call them a GAL. They also work with the Department of Social Services, which is the DSS.
The unfortunate part, when I originally reviewed the case for the affidavit, one of the things that really stood out to me was describing Mom to be verbally aggressive.
They wasn't treating me right. That's just my main thing.
Representation does matter. One of the first things that I heard from the family was, you're a black one. Where did they get you from?
It was amazing because I didn't have anybody to believe in me.
Well, we do exist.
The social worker, she was an African American, but she still talked to me like I was nothing.
I never got that she was verbally aggressive. If anything, I felt like she was verbally expressive. And being able to understand their culture, being able to understand where they come from in life, being able to understand their mannerisms of when they're talking with expressions of using their hands or their tones might change, and it's not them being, verbally aggressive or angry, it's just how they're expressing how they feel. I have to meet them where they're at.
Having someone in that courtroom who says, this is what I think is in the best interest of the child, is critical.
Tashana, from first day, she wanted to.
He's literally dope. He's the dopest baby ever.
It was something that she said to me that always stood out was, I don't do anything I don't want to.
I had to get my license.
And she acknowledged, her past.
I had to do sit-downs with the supervisors.
In her background, but she also wanted to make sure that Una remained with family.
It was extremely hard because I had grown attached to him. I didn't want to let him go. Our little thing is I'll wake him up and I'll be like, good morning, I love you. And if I don't say that, even that would throw his day off. He'll look up at me like, I'm waiting.
So she definitely had a want to make sure that Una was returned back to family and not was just a product of foster care.
I want to make sure that when they think I'm a fail, I'm not, because I'm going to call and I'm going to ask her. She's going to tell me right from wrong. I just want to make sure I'm doing it right. I almost gave up. I called Miss Carter in the middle of the night. I was crying. I was just so tired. It was like a race. And I didn't have no water. I didn't have nothing. I just could not stop, though. I couldn't stop. And she had a talk with me, and I just kept going after that.
Don't quit. Don't you dare quit on these kids.
She just had a strength that was amazing to watch. Because Tashana had so much stacked up against her, I made sure if I felt like it was injustice being done or something that was unsettling, I made sure I voiced that.
She took a stand. She went by what she felt.
She was being told that she was not necessarily a viable candidate for him to be placed. She still continued to move forward.
And that's how everything started getting into motion.
I was able to really work closely with the DSS worker that was assigned, and we all got on the same page.
The judge started seeing what they were doing.
Casa was very much needed at that time.
She was the mediator. I'm telling you, she was like a counselor. She was everything.
She then started to listen to Tashana. She then started to see her from a different scope.
And he was like, okay, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to play it fair for everybody.
Now, granted, of course, she still had a job to do, and that was, of course, to make sure that Una was placed in permanency.
So he assigned me to do some stuff. I didn't think that it would take that long, but it did. It took almost a year, but it is absolutely worth it. I can't lie.
She marked off every box on that list of requests, suggestions, concerns, to the best of her ability.
When we got to court, I was under pressure. I was like this, wringing my hands.
We didn't know what way it was going to go because ultimately it was the judge's decision. And I remember her saying, "Miss Carter, was it enough? He's worth it for sure, but was it enough?"
But when they gave him to me, I cried. After that court date, it was like the weight had lifted off of me. My biggest fear then was not being heard. That's exactly what I didn't have a voice.
And I remember Judge Payne being able to say, "I hear you, I see you, and, Tashana, you've come such a long, long way."
I'm grateful. I'm so grateful. Again, I didn't have that support system.
I have a different advantage than the other, advocate managers of being in foster care and knowing that process of what the kids are feeling, as well as now being on the other side of being able to advocate truly for my kids, for my advocates, being able to really explain to them of how it feels.
Just so passionate. I think a lot of that comes from just her experience. She knows what it's like, and she knows how to relate to those families.
I had my Casa. She allowed me to cry when I needed to, and she would tell me, "Sweetheart, I'm here for you." Being in the system, it's so lonely. Everyone can go and volunteer at other agencies. But for Casa, you get the opportunity to be able to help pave the way for a kid, even if that's just to talk with them, hold their hand, tell them it's going to be okay to the best of your ability.
So representation matters, and it's important that our volunteers match the demographics of the kids and the families that we serve.
It means so much for the people who doesn't have a voice, for the children who don't have a voice.
They open up more. If someone has lived experience, if they were a foster child.
I can only imagine how many people have went through what I went through and didn't know anything about Casa. That's sad.
I think it's just essential that we have more volunteers. We need more men. We need more volunteers of color, and it's just so important.
A lot of people do not know about Casa, and they should.
Well, we obviously know that not everyone can volunteer at Casa, but donations, especially monthly donations, help us to do what we do. We can't have a class of volunteers if we can't tell people that we even exist. It's reaching volunteers, it's training the volunteers, and then it's supporting them.
There's another kiddo out there like me. So it was my job to now take the cape and do just that, find another kiddo. And I feel like Una was that for me.
I'm never leaving Casa. I'm part of the family. Y'all stuck with me.